Alright, episode 1 of Saac Summer. I haven't done one of these since, I guess, winter, actually, because last time I did it was probably winter break. But I wanted to make another video because I keep making jokes about having that dog in you, and also because Mark was working out this morning, trying to get back into that schedule. So I wanted to make this video and share my thoughts on the subject. But I mean, one thing I was talking to Mark that I guess spurred this thought on was basically he was just saying that, you know, he had all this motivation to work out, and then, you know, when he went out to try to do it, he was like, now I'm pooped, and, you know, kind of lost motivation. And he came back later and he was like, oh, I think it was just my blood sugar kind of messing with my head, which that's valid because he worked out in the morning, so he probably didn't have much food in him. But I was just kind of thinking of my own thoughts between kind of, I guess, the reason for working out, of like what actual like meaning can I actually assign to like working out, and especially bodybuilding, just because I feel like it's often seen as like a super vain thing, and it definitely can be, because I think a lot of the root of why people do it can be vain, and I think definitely something I fall into a ton. But I also think like everything we do should be in some way like defensible, of like, okay, why do I actually do this from like a like God, like Christian perspective. And that was one thing I like, my initial response of like, all right, Mark's getting into the schedule and it's really hard, and I was like at the end of the day, I think that's a good thing, like, because I mean, I see a lot of why I go to the gym, like I do enjoy it, but also like I don't always enjoy it. And so I think one thing that keeps me going back and back to it is the act of actually doing this like disciplined thing when I don't want to is what's gonna kind of get me the like mental gain of like I'm being disciplined and I'm getting through this hard thing. So it's like I kind of see it as I'm getting one of two things out of the gym, and I never really see it as a loss, because either one, I'm going to be super motivated, I'm going to go out and like it's going to be like super fun, or two, I'm not going to be motivated at all. I'm going to come in with this attitude of I have to push myself, I have to do this to the best of my abilities, as if doing it for God and not for man. Like I have to glorify him with my actions in the gym, even though like it's not a thing I want to like do. And I think that's kind of like one of the biggest things, I guess, that kind of helps me like stay disciplined, or like helps me like teach myself that discipline in a way. I totally just cut a car off. He's trying to turn left and I don't want to make eye contact with him. But yeah, like I think the toughness of it is like one of the main goals of having like a scheduled, like I'm gonna do this workout all the time. But obviously like it doesn't have to be like a bodybuilding style workout, which is like primarily what I do, or like powerlifting style, or like, you know, like I think like if running's your thing, I think there's a lot of validity to that. And like I have like the goals I want to get from working out is more like in line with bodybuilding and powerlifting, but also like I am obviously this summer trying to get more like cardiovascular health, because I think that's aligning with my goal, and kind of in trying to assign meaning to this thing I'm doing, that's kind of what I'm looking at. And so I guess just to get into that, like Westminster Shorter Catechism says the chief end of man is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. And so one, I think we don't have to really limit ourselves to saying the only reason I'm doing this is to enjoy it. Like I do think that from like when we look at God, we can't separate his actions from his being. And so we look at God and we say, okay, this is a gracious Father who's giving us good gifts. And I think to just purely enjoy a gift that he's given us, specifically in this case, like our bodies, to enjoy the fullness of what we can do and perform with those bodies, I think that as long as we're not falling into sin, because obviously there's like enjoyment that can come from sin, but assuming we're doing something that is like not sinful, we can just do it for enjoyment. And I'm not saying I just do it purely for enjoyment. Obviously that's kind of the point of this video, is it's not pure enjoyment. But one, like, I think it is enough just to say, yeah, like, this is a thing I enjoy. And you're gonna get different, like, benefits from doing things you enjoy, but also, like, we have to allow ourselves to say, like, part of why this is good is because it's a gift from the Father. And purely being a good gift and my enjoyment of that is tied intrinsically to glorifying God. Like, I'm giving God glory by saying, like, this is a gift I want and am gracious for, and now it's my job to use the most of that gift he's given. And so I think that's one thing that's like really big. And I think a lot of, like, if you get really down into like the what's it called, like legalistic side, you can kind of be like averse to enjoyment, and I think it's such a big part of it still. So that's one thing. Also, like, purely from bodybuilding perspective, like, all right, what does actually just purely getting bigger? Because, like, I'm going into workout primarily not for powerlifting, but for bodybuilding. So it's like, yeah, I want to get stronger, and like, I'm not sacrificing getting stronger for trying to get bigger. Like, I still like bench and like deadlift and squat sometimes. So it's like, obviously it's not purely that, but like, I do enjoy it, so that's one thing. But also, like, I do think a lot of, like, when I become like a father and a husband, I like do want to present myself as like capable, just for like safety reasons. Like, you know, I've seen these videos of like, it'll be like a predator interview, like they got out of jail and they're like, all right, like, how did you decide what like child you were gonna target? And he was like, well, I look at their father, and if I don't see him as a threat, like, that's the kid I'm gonna go after. And so, you know, like, I think about that a ton when I'm working out, of like, I want to not just be physically capable, but I want to like be seen as capable. So one, I can protect my family, but two, people can go to me for help in those kind of situations. Because like, if I'm just purely like capable, and yet people don't see me as someone who can help them, then I'm not going to be able to actually use those capabilities. And that's definitely not like a like massive like, you have to bodybuild otherwise you're going to put your family at risk kind of thing. But I do think like that is a big reason of like, I want to present myself in a way that makes people feel like comfortable around me. And also, like, you want to present yourself as like a man, and like that is part of living out what God's made you to be, is developing yourself and your body into like the image of what God's created you to be. And part of what God has created men to be is strong. And so I think developing ourselves and like our bodies, both like body and mind, into that image is just inherently a good thing. So that's one thing with that. But also just obviously, like, I think part of the enjoyment of life and the using of God's gift is becoming more capable. Like, I think you can enjoy life more if you're stronger and like more like fit. Like, yeah, like inherently I enjoy being able to lift things, but also like I can do more things. Like, I can like, you know, like if I want to just like climb up some rocks, or like climb up a tree, or like go backpacking, for example, like I could backpack easier than my friends because of the work I put into the gym on like those leg days, you know? And so it like doesn't immediately connect, but also it's like when I get to this thing of, oh, I just want to go backpack to enjoy like the nature God's made for me to enjoy and like to glorify him in that, like now I'm able to do that better, able to like enjoy it more, able to give more gratitude as like an offering to the Lord because I'm capable of these things. And so I think that's another thing, is like the gifts you're given, the more fully you can utilize those gifts, the more gratitude you're going to have towards the God who's given them to you. And I think that's a huge thing, especially with our bodies, of like, I'm not going to be grateful for the fact that I have a functioning body if my body doesn't function that well. But then if I am strong and can run and sprint and jump and all this stuff, then I'm now super grateful for the body God's given me because of all the things that I can do with it. And also all the experiences I can have because my body's able to do those things. And so obviously, like, I've not done the best with cardio, but at the same time, like, I'm not unfit, you know, from that perspective. Like, I can still go out and play sports and stuff. So I think that's a big thing. But also, I think a lot of it, going back to kind of that discipline side of like, all right, doing this, like, I think a ton of any action we can do can kind of wrap back around to prayer. One of the first like classes I took at Lee, we had to read this article that was basically like this person talking of like everything I do from their perspective in life is basically like it like flows into prayer almost, or like kind of trains for prayer in a way. So like you can kind of see this discipline of like, all right, I don't want to necessarily do this thing or take this time out of my day, and it's kind of a thing where I'm having to like restrict myself down and kind of like calm my mind to do this thing. And that's like that just directly applies over to prayer. Like if I'm going to work out and putting myself through this struggle, teaching myself to suffer in that way, then I'm gonna be able to pray better. And then also when I encounter like real suffering that just occurs to me, like something outside of my ability to control, I'm also going to be able to get through that better and also pray through that better. And so I think that's a huge thing. One idea I wanted to follow through, I guess, was that like suffering thing I was thinking about, of like, obviously we have like Jesus is coming to earth to live life as a human and suffer. And part of that, like part of the reason behind that is obviously so that he can get closer to us in our suffering. But then we also have all these verses of like, take up your cross daily and like die to yourself and like all this stuff of like, yes, Jesus is suffering to get closer to us, but we also have to like suffer, and not necessarily like in a masochistic way, but in like a limiting of yourself. You have to die to your flesh and like do these things like fasting that are denying yourself daily in order to get closer to Jesus in his suffering on the cross and just in life in general. And so I don't think we just have to stop of like, oh, my earthly suffering is what's getting me relatable to Jesus. I think Jesus' suffering goes so far beyond our suffering that we can both be comforted in the fact that we're never going to suffer beyond him, but also have that expectation and that encouragement to work towards the suffering that we have not yet achieved, because we know Jesus has revealed himself in suffering. And so if I want to know more about Jesus, then to seek that suffering is to seek to deny myself and my flesh. And one thing I kind of struggle with is like a lot of the verses on like fasting, it's almost just like this assumed thing in our lives of like, Jesus is like, oh, like when you fast or like do this and do this, and it's like, okay, like, can I get a little explanation on that? And it's kind of hard for me because it's like, I don't really fully understand like what I'm doing. And I think I just honestly overcomplicate it, because I think at the heart of that is really just this denial of yourself and this taking up of your cross. And I think very easily, like various kinds of training, like running or working out, it just is denial of yourself, because you're going into this thing and you're feeling pain, but because you have a purpose behind that, you can go through that pain to both achieve the goal you're setting out to, but also you can achieve that perseverance through suffering that's going to just draw you closer to the heart of God and to the heart of Jesus as he's revealed himself on earth to us. And I think it's something you have to go at intentionally, because I don't think you're just going to suffer and see Jesus in it. I think you have to be looking for him in it, because suffering is also very distracting. But I think if you do look for him in it, I think that can be such a rewarding act. Like, to be able to see Jesus in this new light and just to be looking for him in all the things that you're doing. I think it's such a special, like, freedom, honestly, that we're given through the Holy Spirit. So, yeah. But I just think it's really cool to kind of see, I don't know, just to give a lot of, I think we are encouraged to do things. Like, I know it's a joke to be like, yeah, you got that, like, dog in you. But, like, I think the encouragement of that is, like, what does what I do actually mean? Because if what I'm doing has no meaning, then I really don't have a reason to do it. And I can't just sit there and be like, I want to be encouraged to do this thing, but I don't know why I'm doing it. Because if you don't know why, like, I don't know. So I think thinking through stuff like that just helps. And, you know, both to become encouraged to do the thing, but also just to learn more from that thing you're doing. Anyway, Saac vlogs out.